All right, so hello everyone. My name is Ashley, and this is my good friend Cris Jones. And I know a lot of you guys miss her, so you're probably very excited to see this interview. She's tuning in from California, and she's going to share a little bit about her health journey. Because as you know, at the Fort Myers Church, she was very involved in music and children's ministry, but also in health ministry. And sometimes we don't talk about that as much, but that's so important because Ellen White says it's the right hand of the three angels message. So thank you, Cris, for joining us. And maybe to start with, if you don't mind just telling us about yourself, were you always a healthy person, or is that something you kind of grew into?
All right. Well, thank you, Ashley, for having me here. It's a pleasure. Well, I'm gonna try to make it not too long. I was always, as a child, we were in a very healthy household. My mom was very health conscious, so she was very careful with the things we were eating, make sure we had a lot of vegetables. We didn't have, I grew up in Brazil and we grew up in the country. My mom avoided all the processed food. So everything we ate, as far as I can remember, it was all she made. She would bake some cookies, of course, cakes and all, but it was the stuff that she would make at home. When we went to the grocery stores, was basically just for like dry goods like oil. No, oil is not dry, but anyway, for things like oil, beans, rice. We had produce that came from the place we lived, so everything was fresh. My mom did. We had a dairy farm nearby from the school that my parents worked at, so they would get fresh milk. I mean, it would come warm. It's still from the cows. So early in the morning, she would come get that, and then she would make her own cheese. So it was even though we did the dairy part, she was very careful with sugar, with how much fat we were eating, and the mix is also, she was careful with not mixing certain things that were not healthy. When I went to college, I moved away from home, and I had to take two buses. I lived in São Paulo, which is a big city, so I didn't have a car. It was not necessary. So I had to take two buses to get to the school from the place where I was living. So I would stop when I had to switch buses. I would stop at some place like KFC or Pizza Hut and like, oh, I'm a vegetarian. I'm not gonna eat anything with meat, so it's okay. So I would eat stuff like that. But then from that, I started eating more meat and more meat. And so my years in college were not very healthy until I did music first. And then when I went to PT, physical therapy, I went to PT school. My first year, I had anatomy classes. And just after anatomy, I could not eat meat anymore. So I quit eating meat, but I was still eating vegetarian, vegetarian pizzas, vegetarian sandwiches, whatever, a lot of processed things. And those were the years I did, since I had I was going through school for 2 degrees. So I basically took me about 10 years to finish everything. Those years were not healthy at all. And and then fast forward, I moved to the US. I got married. I was vegetarian, but junk vegetarian. Then when we moved to Fort Myers, which was about 7 years ago, I met Kathy and we got acquainted with Chip, went through classes, and that's when I started again being more conscious about healthy habits. And it brought me back all those habits my mom would always say at home, even like things like drinking while you're eating and things like that. So in 2016 was when I started again being more health conscious. And that has been since then. Of course, and nobody's perfect. I relapse here and there, but it's been overall really good. And I started exercising for the first time in my life regularly. So I started in February of 17 to exercise. So I started the whole process like about May or June of 2016, and then exercising I started only in January of 17. And it has become a habit now.
And I know a lot of people get overwhelmed because New Year's resolutions, everybody has resolutions that, by January 8th, I feel like most people have fallen off the wagon, myself included.
Yes.
But were there some changes that were like easier? Like, were there some changes for you that really weren't that hard once you put your mind to it?
I pull up, well, there's some certain people who say about, you should celebrate the things that you are doing and not make a list of the things that you quit doing and not doing. But I'll do that just for the sake of answering the question. Um, I totally left dairy in 2016. I quit eating dairy. And that was easy for me for two reasons. First of all, I'm a visual person, and so I started imagining where the milk comes from, and all that kind of got a little gross to me. But I used to have a lot of allergies. So I would constantly have sinus infections, my nose would be running, anything would cause me to get a runny nose and things like that. And when I stopped eating cheese and quit all the dairy, basically, that really cleared up. So that really was easy for me because of that, because I saw the result. That was, I think, by far, I already didn't eat meat, so I didn't have to be a little more conscious about meat. So that was not a big deal. But the cheese, I always liked cheese. I always enjoyed pizza, and the more cheese, the better. And I remember once I was like, okay, I can't eat pizza anymore, but that's okay. We figured out and all that. And once I saw the changes in my body, like with the mostly with the sinus and all the respiratory stuff, that really made it easier for me. So
Yeah, I like how you brought that up because a lot of people focus just on weight loss, but there's so many other benefits. Like getting rid of your diseases, your allergies,
yes,
your inflammation, better sleep. So that's
yes.
great. Are there some changes that were a little harder? It was worth it in the long run, but it was a little hard at first.
Yeah, the whole process, it is difficult because the main thing with changing your lifestyle is having self-control.
Yeah.
And something has to click in your mind. And the one piece that I forgot to mention on the first question is that in 2016, I went to Wildwood Lifestyle Center in Tennessee. My mother-in-law was sick with cancer, and we sent her there, and I went as just to accompany her. And I would not do treatments, but I would eat the same way they ate, have the same schedule, exercising and all that. So I was there for 11 days, and in those 11 days, I didn't eat any sugar at all. I had headaches that were so bad, so bad. I never had headaches before, so I started having those headaches, and then they told me it's because your body is going through withdrawal. And so in those the 11 days that I was there, I was able to lose 8 pounds just by doing nothing, just eating right. I was walking a lot. The only exercise I was doing was walking. I would go for walks, and we had a competition between the people who were there, who was going to have more steps. So I wanted to participate in that, and drinking a lot of water. Those were the main changes. So basically took all the sugar out of my diet and the dairy. And when I came home after those 11 days, I was like, I felt so much better. And so these changes are that the biggest change was the self-control to be cooking the proper way at home, because I'm the one at home who does the cook and not the cooking. So that was difficult, and also make sure that I did not have at home the things that I didn't want to eat. Because what happened after Wildwood, soon after that, I went through the CHIP classes at the church, which for people who are listening who don't know what CHIP is a complete health improvement program. It's a program that is holistic, that takes care of you. We talk about the 8 natural remedies, which are sunlight, fresh air. Ashley can help me if I forget anything. Eating a good diet, having some kind of spiritual routine, drinking lots of water, resting enough, exercising, and what is the other one? Being temperate in everything you do, So they focus a lot of that on those things at Wildwood. And when I came home, I try to implement those things. With rest was difficult because I have children, and I would go to bed later because I wanted to do things after the kids were there. Those were harder for me. So it's like the whole lifestyle was so like was mind blowing for me as an adult, because I had done that as a child because my mom was into that. She really wanted us to follow that kind of lifestyle. But as an adult, when you are somewhat in charge, because it was my husband and I doing this for the kids, so you have to create that. That was difficult. But in the first 6 months, I didn't do any exercise at all. I was doing all the diet part, the resting, the water, and all that, but I was not doing exercise at all. Nothing, nothing. And I lost 25 pounds in 3 months.
Wow.
So that was like even more mind blowing for me. I was just like, oh, this works.
Right.
And I was not, the thing is that I had tried so many different things. I remember I even tried this pill it was a pill that you would take and you could not eat anything that had fat because you would do it was bad.
Mm.
And nothing had worked for me. And I had 2 pregnancies. I was almost 200, no, I was over 200 pounds and all that. So I said, no, I can't do that. I just can't. So when I saw the results of doing nothing but just changing the lifestyle minus the exercise, I was just like, I got to do this.
Mhm.
So that also convinced me. It was not easy. It was the hardest thing, I think, for me. So let me try to be concise with your question. The hardest thing was the self-control, to cook the right things and to set up the routines. And because now I was in charge, so set up the routines and make which one of them is still my struggle today, is the whole meal planning thing. Plan. My friend Kathy Reinhardt says, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Mhm.
So that is very difficult, but it's doable. And if I did, anybody can do it. It's doable. You just need to put your priorities right and create little habits. Go little by little. Otherwise, it can be really overwhelming.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that because diet alone, look, you lost 25 pounds in 3 months, but I like how you mentioned exercise too, because that will give it a little extra push, that
Yeah.
will just, it goes together. But, what you mentioned, the diet, that's like 80% of the whole equation. And when
Yes.
you've been making these changes, everybody has different foods they like. God gave us billions of food combination options, but are
Yes.
there like 5 superfoods or like 5 foods you would recommend like for maximum health benefit? It's probably hard to narrow it down to 5, but are there some
Yeah.
categories or some foods you recommend?
Let me think. One good thing, I never counted the calories. There's this thing out there about counting calories, counting how much macros you eat. I never did that. So I can tell you about like foods that I like, that I think are really good, beneficial. First of all, lentils. For me, lentils are number one. I love lentils. They are super rich in fiber. They have protein for people like I. I don't eat meat and I do not do any dairy, and also protein will come from beans and other things. But I really like lentils, and you can make lentils in many different ways. You can make with a soup. I personally like just like cook the lentils, put some garlic and some olive oil and salt, a little bit of olive oil and salt, and that's it. My family likes it different, so I throw some other things in there. Can make soup. So let's say 5 lentils. For me is the first one. Lentils is number one, hands down. Um, let's see, quinoa. But quinoa is a little more tricky because not everybody likes the texture or the flavor. But I like quinoa. I think is also quinoa is if I'm not mistaken, is one of the highest um, plant-based foods that are rich in protein. That has the highest concentration of protein. So I like making, as if how you make oatmeal with oats, you can make with quinoa too. So you cook with milk, usually coconut milk is so good. Then you put whatever sweetener you like. I like coconut sugar too, or agave, and eat with slived almonds. Oh, it's really good. So that I'm a big breakfast person, so I like breakfast like that. I like oats too. The thing with oats is that for some people. For me, I never struggled with it, but it can be like, because it's carbs and all, and people who count carbs, that can be a problem, an issue. But it has fibers too, so I like that. Let's see what else. Tofu. I tofu for me is I must have. I always have tofu in my kitchen because I can make desserts with tofu. I can make um something. You can make like how do you call it? To put on spreads for the bread, and I can make anything, like I can put in the air fryer, or I can broil in the oven, and you season with whatever seasoning you like. Just put in there. So that, and broccoli, vegetable. I should have mentioned a vegetable. Broccoli has a lot of protein too. It's fiber. It's easy. You can find anywhere, and it's easy to prepare. You can broil it. You can steam. You can do whatever you want. It's really, so for me, I think these are the ones that we always have here, except the quinoa, because in my house I'm the only one who likes quinoa, so I make for myself. So
That's
yeah.
funny. You mentioned like all my favorite foods.
Oh, good.
That's funny. Yeah, and for people that are listening, like if you struggle with overeating, like I know my husband and I always work on that. These are foods that
Yeah.
are so high in protein, they're gonna fill you up. So
Yes.
it's almost impossible to overeat on lentils. Like you can have
Yes.
1 or 2 cups, and that's gonna fill you
True.
up so much. It's like
That
22
is
grams
true.
of protein a cup.
Hmm.
Tofu. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could eat that whole block for like 400 calories, and it has
Yes.
like so much protein. Broccoli, if I
Yes.
know sometimes like if I don't want to eat pasta, I just like microwave a bag of broccoli, put some marinara, some vegan cheese on it, and you have like a
There you
whole
go.
plate for like 150 calories.
And that's the thing. You can eat much more for the
Right,
same amount of calories that you would eat to eat like this amount of pasta, or if you
right,
eat meat of this much meat and all. So
right.
yeah.
So yeah, great choice of foods. And I hope that gives people options. My friend Shakira is going to do a seminar on like how to transition from a typical diet to like a vegan diet. And
Yes.
I know a lot of the things you mentioned, she's mentioned as well. So that's awesome.
Mhm. That's
Now,
great.
what about your spiritual life? Because I've been guilty of this. When I think about health, I associate it with weight loss, which is not a bad thing. Like we all want to lose weight. That's not necessarily bad, but it has major benefits for us spiritually. So what about you? Do you notice a difference like when you eat and then the quality of your devotions?
Yes, definitely, because my mom used to say that certain foods will, I'm trying to find a word in English, but it will basically kind of like keep your brain, shut your brain down a little bit. Your brain is almost like fog your brain.
Yeah.
So, and we know what our brain will be clearer when we eat clean foods and all. So I did feel that, mostly because at that time I was homeschooling my kids. So at the time I was starting to homeschool my son, who was going to first grade, and I knew I needed to be spiritually minded to be able to have patience with. I had a 2-year-old in the house and a 6-year-old in the house back then, and the difference was great. And my husband noticed too. He said, even like he said, I remember him saying this. I had already started even the exercise and everything. He said, whatever happens, I don't want you to cut whatever you're doing, because it has changed you. So spiritually, I think for me, I had a tendency to be very negative, and if I'm not intentional, I can go to that route. So I think all the habits put me in a more positive trajectory, and cleaning my diet uh, is almost like cleared my brain to understand God can speak to you much. You can understand God. Well, He's always speaking, but you can understand Him better
Mhm.
when your mind is clearer, when you rest enough, when you're not feeling like tired from overeating, or for eating late, or for eating things that you shouldn't be, like things that are basically putting your body in a compromised position. So definitely, any studying the Bible was more enjoyable, and it was more, I was able to get more out of it too, of my devotional time, and many lessons that I've learned that I am still improving and applying now. It was through those times when I start, I noticed it, and I can come back and think, wow. It's almost like, when if you smell something and it takes back to a situation. It's like thinking about this. I can think about situations back then, where I was like, wow, I would not have seen this way. And I credit it to having a clear mind, because my body was clean, more clean.
And I like how
I don't know
you
if that makes sense.
No, that makes total sense, because that kind of goes with my next question. I like how you've mentioned exercise a lot as well, because a lot of times people just focus on diet, and diet has a lot of spiritual and health benefits, but so does exercise. It can actually benefit us spiritually as well as physically. So do you have any suggestions? Because exercise is something people either love or hate, and most of the public hates it. And you
I
said you
know.
started exercising, I think, in 2017. So how did you get into it? Do you have any suggestions for people where it's a real struggle?
Okay, so the main thing with exercise is to think, if you don't enjoy, you need to think, why do I need to exercise? And think about your objective. Is that right to say that way? Yeah. What is your intention with the exercise? I want to get better. So my goal is there. Is not the exercise is part of the process. So I don't always want to eat broccoli. I don't feel like eating peppers. Is not my favorite thing. Eggplants is not. But I know what is the goal I have. I wanted to have energy because my kids are fairly small. They're very active, and I want to be able to do things with them. So with exercise, I would say keep the goal in mind instead of the process. But whatever you do, move. I personally, I do CrossFit. I enjoy because it's intense, it's a high intensity exercise, and it's something that I come in. Somebody's telling me what to do. I don't need to think. I don't need to think about anything. I just come in, and I like running. Running for me is very spiritual. It's a spiritual experience, because when I run, I don't put music in my head, in my ears. I usually have headphones, but I put either a sermon or interviews of spiritually minded people, and that really, I don't know. I'm not an audio learner, but when I'm running, I do absorb better. So people need to find things that they like to do. It doesn't need to be running, doesn't need to be CrossFit. This is what I do. For people who don't know what to do, you walk in a gym. So many times I got into memberships, and I entered in a gym. I'm like, what am I gonna do? I didn't know what to do. I went to the treadmill and I walked for 45 minutes, go home. Next day, did the same thing. Some people are like me. So I would say find something that is already structured for you. There are so many gyms now that you go with different kind of, there is what is that one called? I don't know if we can say names here on
Yeah,
these things.
that's okay. We're not
We're
sponsored.
not
You gotta do that.
Yeah, we're not sponsored, but Orange Fitness is one that you come in, is given to you what you're supposed to do. I know that there's Pilates, what you can do that too. They are already given to you. If you are somebody like me, who likes, I'm not an exercise science person, so I like to be given already what I'm supposed to do. But some people know what to do. So they go to a gym and they know, okay, today I'm going to work this, this, this. Tomorrow I'm going to alternate. So I'm going to do that, that. I don't know. My husband is better at that. I'm not. So I suggest CrossFit for people who like intense stuff. You don't need to feel intimidated, because, yeah, there are some people who are really good. They lift a lot of weight, but I don't do that stuff. I don't do pull-ups, but I get a sweat every day. And the main thing for me is how I feel afterwards. Yeah, you are tired a little bit, but you feel, for me, was two things. First, the sense of I accomplished something that I had never done in my life. I started doing this when I was 40 years old. So it was a big change for me. For 40 years, I didn't do much exercise. I was not athletic when I was in high school and college. So that's the one thing, the one benefit. So I would suggest, think about the goal, and reaping the benefits of it is going to be right away. You might not feel like going for a walk or running or going to the gym. The first thing you need to do is get up, put your clothes on, put your shoes on, get in the car and go. then don't think much, just go wherever you need to go. And then as you feel that endorphin afterwards, the feeling, okay, I overcame the barrier or my struggle, the benefit is so good. You feel so good about your, it boosts you up to, I didn't feel like doing something, but I did anyways because it was good for me. Therefore, now I'm feeling good about myself. And you feel encouraged, and then the next day you do it again, next day you do it again until it becomes a habit. So, just one quick thing about just an example. Habits are things that will not come right away. And some people say it takes 21 days. Some people say it takes more. I read a book and he was saying like to really get into a habit, you need to do for at least a year, a month and a half, or 3 months. I think it was 3 months, he said. And it is true because I am not a morning person. I do not like you can ask my husband, don't talk to me when I wake up. It's not that I'm in bad mood, but I'm not a person. My brain is not connected. I don't learn things in the morning or anything. So when I started going to the gym, I said, well, I have kids. I stay with them at home. My husband needs to work. So I either need to go to the gym after he comes home or before the kids get up. Which if I went after he came home, it was late in the day, I would miss family time. So I said, I have to go when the kids are awake, which means I got to get up early. And the early was early. I had to be in the gym at 5:15 for the class because my daughter wakes up very early. So by the time I came home was 6:45, she would be up. So I started waking up at 4:45 every morning. And it's been almost 7 years. It's gonna in February now. So it's not easy for me still, but it became a habit, and I miss it when I don't get up because then I would get up early, do my devotions, and go to the gym. And or if for whatever reason I slept in a little more, I would go. I would read the Bible, listen to the Bible on the way, then listen on the way back, then read when I got home and do my journal. I like to do journaling and all that. And finish it when I came back. But so those two things go for me in the morning: go to the gym and do the devotions. Sometimes I alternate the order, just because my brain is not awake. But now I'm better to do my devotions because I got in this habit of getting up early. So I don't know if I answer clearly for everybody your question about what I would suggest for people as far as exercise. I think it's so important because we will need our body to function well as we get old. I am 46 years old and I have an 8-year-old who is very active. Ashley knows her. You know how she is. Some of you know. And I told myself when I started, she was 2 years old. I said, I need to be healthy because I want to have energy for her. She was born, it was late in my life. And I want to be, if I reach to be 70, 80 years old, I want to be healthy enough that I can still participate in things with them and have that. So that's my goal. And that's what makes me get up and move every day.
Well, thank you. You were great to interview. I feel like you gave a lot of practical tips. You gave your personal testimony, and honestly, seeing someone who's been doing this for years, I think that's encouraging. It's not like you discovered this yesterday and you're an expert. You know, you've done this for 7 years. You know, you've been consistent. So,
but I'm not expert. I've been consistent, but not expert yet.
I don't know if anyone really is an expert. You know, I think we're all aspiring. But awesome. Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm just going to close in prayer because I know there might be some people listening that might need some prayer as well. Right. Dear Jesus, thank you so much for Cris. Thank you for this time together. Thank you for the people listening. And we all have different goals, but I think at the end of the day, we want to honor you with what we eat, with what we drink, and with what we do. And some of us are further along, some of us are beginners, but I ask that you just give us a desire to want to be healthy. Please give us momentum. Please give us initiative. And when it's hard, let us cling to you. Because if we cling to ourselves, we will fail. But if we cling to you, Lord, you will help us meet all these goals we were never able to meet. So please bless Cris and her family as they're in California. Please bless everyone in our church family. In your holy and precious name, amen.
Amen. Amen.